Hello, my name is Adam, and I'm on a quest to be the most prolific reviewer of all time, which means I review books, movies, podcasts, plays, documentaries, whatever I want, basically. Let's see if you agree with my opinion of this documentary about John Candy called John Candy, I Like Me. If you don't know John Candy, and unfortunately, with the passing of time, I think it's probably more and more likely that you don't know who John Candy is. That's a real shame. So, John Candy was a Canadian comedic actor, and he started as an improv comedian in Second City, Toronto. And then that group, they created a television show named SCTV, which is a little bit before my time. So I haven't actually watched any episodes, even though it was on in Canada, around when I was growing up. But maybe the adults in my life felt that it was too adult humor for a little kid at the time, which is completely acceptable. And then, while he SCTV got more and more popular, especially in the United States, and he was discovered in a way by Steven Spielberg, and Steven Spielberg cast him in a movie called 1941. And Steven Spielberg then got a lot of his friends to be starring in that movie. And if you think about who his friends are like an amazing list themselves. So you have like Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, Dave Thomas, legends of Canadian comedy. Oh, yeah, I forgot Dan Aykroyd as well. So a lot of comedy, and I mean, I think that Bill Murray had kind of taken off earlier in in time chronologically, but Bill Murray also started at Second City in Toronto. So you have like without John Candy and this whole sort of environment that he helped create, the comedy in the 80s wouldn't have existed, right? Ghostbusters wouldn't have existed because that's Dan Aykroyd and the guy who played Venkman. But yeah, so he was a writer. He was the main writer behind SCTV. So no Ghostbusters, no Ghostbusters 2, no Blues Brothers, no SNL the way that it came to be, um, no Groundhog Day, like all of those movies, but also no Home Alone because um, John Candy and John Hughes, they made like 9 movies together. So they clearly had some kind of sort of mutually beneficial relationship. In the movie Uncle Buck, which I reviewed for this channel like 3 or 4 months ago, actually, I'm not sure if I made a video or if it was just for the podcast. I don't know, but like Uncle Buck was and is like such a great performance from Candy. He has like this great heart. Like the thing about Candy is like he is big, and I think audiences at the time were like, "Oh, big funny man, ha ha ha." But the bigness was not really connected to the funniness, right? There's not a lot of jokes about him like being large and being out of weight and whatever. I mean, in Stripes there's a bit of that, but um, in Uncle Buck, he is just like he is this kind of figure of derision, but he also has this like really darkness and sharpness to his acting. Like there's a scene where he's like threatening to murder the boyfriend of his niece. And you think he's kind of serious, right, about that. And that's such a great performance too. Because there is this, he's like, for reasons of plot reasons, he's taking care of his brother's children. And he has like a niece who's a teenager, and then he has a niece who is like 6, and then I think she's a twin with another boy who's played by Macaulay Culkin, and that's also a classic scene where Macaulay is interrogating Candy. It's like, oh, where do you live? At home, in a house. Do you rent or own? Rent, and they're just like back and forth. So they had like this great uh, kind of chemistry between them. But anyway, so there's this scene later where he gets called into a parent teacher meeting about his 6 year old niece, and the teacher is just this classic old school no nonsense saying like, such great insults, but she's talking about a 6 year old like she's a dreamer, a nonchalant, like all of that stuff. And then basically Candy says, she's 6 years old. She should be a dreamer. I don't want to meet a 6 year old who's not a dreamer. And, you know, it's that is this weird. That's why Candy was such a great actor because he had like this heart, but he also had like this menace, and he had like this kind of like exuberance he could play. Like he could play like in Home Alone 1, he plays this kind of polka king who gives a ride to the mom, played by Catherine O'Hara, and it's also just a brilliant performance because he's like really ebullient. Is that a word? Ebullient? I think it should be. Like he's just so like happy and cheerful that it gets kind of on your nerves. You're like, oh God, why are you so happy? And like I mentioned that he's Canadian, and I think that that's a really, I don't know, maybe I'm just having a revelation now. I think that's a really Canadian way to be. Like, we do not like it when people are like really like bubbly and cheerful, like almost like an American. We think like that's too much. So John Candy is playing this like really happy and like cheerful, nice guy, and he's bubbly and he's a ebullient, if that's a word. And the Catherine O'Hara's character, she's just like, she's grateful for the help, but she's like, oh, I want to murder this person, which is, yeah, which is great. And it's funny, like, Canadians have made so many great characters about people from Chicago. There's like Catherine O'Hara um, and John Candy there, and also Dan Aykroyd as a blues brother. So, yeah, it's really great. So Candy had like this great range, and the documentary, it's kind of it's weird because John Candy died when he was 43 years old, which is about 5 years younger than I am. So that really hits hard. And you would think at this time, so he died in 1994. So that was about 31 years ago now. So, more than 31. My math is wrong, but anyway, he died over 20 years ago. So you would think that a documentary about this would be kind of like just a reassessment of where his career is in the history of comedy and stuff. But they're interviewing the friends and the family of John Candy. And that's interesting too because you never feel like, because sometimes when a person is being interviewed, a famous person, you really feel like there's some kind of separation between how the family felt and how his friends felt. But you don't really get that in this documentary. And you can really feel that even though he died in 1994, it still really hurts these people that their friend is dead. And they're interviewing Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray, and those are like completely opposite characters, right? But they both loved John Candy. They interview Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy and Dave Thomas, and they interview people from his life, like his wife, like his kids, and yeah, the pain is just really still there. And 1994, even for me, it seems like such a long time ago. And that was when I was finishing high school, you know? So, but I can't imagine if I knew John Candy personally and he had died. I think it would be devastating too because he seems like one of those people who he didn't abuse other people. He abused himself, right? And that's the big tragedy. And another tragedy is that his own father died when he was 5, and his father was 35. And his father also died of a bad heart. So basically, John Candy died when he was 43, so he made it a little bit farther. But his son also was really young. And, he had to grow up with the same situation that John Candy did. The difference is that it must be really weird to lose your parents at such a young age and then be able to turn on a movie and see your dad whenever you want. Or even worse, like maybe you're feeling like especially sad that you've lost somebody so important to you, and then you are like flipping through the channels and Uncle Buck comes on, or Home Alone. Well, Home Alone maybe, because Home Alone is one like it's a Christmas classic now, right? So yeah, and I think like you get an interview with the son, and the son he never says it, but I think he really must resent the fact that all of these people who have like these great careers had this time with his father and he did not, you know. So it's a really good documentary, but it does make one sad, and don't be surprised if you tear up a little bit when you're watching it. And if you don't know who John Candy is, some movies that I would recommend to start with would be Uncle Buck and Home Alone. Those are great performances of his, but of course Blues Brothers. He has a has great character in that one as well. Um, yeah, and the title "I Like Me" comes from a movie that I don't think I've seen actually. It's called Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and it stars Steve Martin and John Candy. And John Candy is being like this aggressively ebullient guy. Like he played characters like that in a few movies. And Steve Martin is this guy who's like really, really annoying. And they show this scene where basically Martin's character breaks and he just like lays into Candy's character, like saying all of these things about him that are true, right? Like you talk too much, your stories aren't interesting. Um, you know, you were like, people tell anecdotes usually because they find them funny or interesting, but yours are neither funny nor interesting. And, just getting deeper and deeper and deeper and more personal with these insults. And then you see Candy, and I think in another movie, in another sort of, performance, it would just be like, oh, yeah, yeah, you're. Because a lot of these hurtful things that characters say in film and TV, it's just laughed off as a joke. But you see, like, Candy is looking at that, and he looks so heartbroken that this guy he considered to be a friend would think that about him. And he's like, you know what? You can, um, you know, you can think that way, but I like me. You can think that way. The speech is a bit longer, but you can think that way, but my wife likes me. My friends love me. My clients love me. So, you know, who's wrong here? Basically, is it you or is it them? So I like me. I'm going to think it's them. And I think that's important because, life, you're not always going to fit perfectly with other personalities. There are going to be people in your life who like you, who dislike you, who hate you. And yeah, you can't please well, I was about to say you can't please anyone, but you can't please everyone all the time. So you just have to try and like yourself. And I think that's such an important message because sometimes, you know, we are our own harshest critics. And to think about, like, if you would you say those things that you say to your best friend about yourself, about them, or about your children, or to your children about them that you say to yourself about you? You wouldn't, right? So, I like me. It's an important message. And I haven't seen the movie, but it's definitely going to go on the list of things to watch. Yeah, okay, so I got a little bit emotional at the end, but what did you think about John Candy? What did you think about this documentary? What's your favorite John Candy film? Put it in the comments. If you like what I do, please like and subscribe. My goal is to have 150 subscribers by the end of January. I believe I have 130 right now. And yeah, if you really like it, check out the Patreon, which is in the show notes or the description of this video. Thank you. Bye bye.